there everyone, it is me Brandon, and today we're going to check out the custom Tomy Decidueye figure. So I customized this figure because I felt like this figure deserved better. The shoulders prevented the arms from moving, and it's just limited in total. So I took the liberty to give the shoulders articulation, and I modified the arms a little bit so you could do the bow and arrow look that the Decidueye always does. And the Decidueye is my favorite out of the Alolan starters, so that's why I did it. If I didn't care, I would not have done this, but I did anyways. So let's check out the modification I've done. So as you can see, the shoulders are now articulated. I'm going to take off the head so I can show you the cutout. So the cutout is I just cut around with an X-Acto knife, and I also made a groove here so the joint can go inside. And when I take this off, I filled it with clay, not just any clay, epoxy clay, and I just shoved it into the peg until it like hardened, so it can go up and down. It can swivel this way too, and I also did the same thing for this side. So for these holes I made, I use a drill, and I drilled a hole in the figure so I can put the joint in there. And did I tell you that I used a Figma wrist joint? Like those extra joints that you get when you buy Figma figures? I think I mentioned it. I mentioned it already. But the shoulders have more movement now, so you can hinge them up. So Decidueye's arms can reach higher now, which is an improvement. I also painted the gaps green so it blends in, because if I didn't, you'd see like the cream white and the brown, and it just looked ugly, so I just painted it green. Same goes to the back. It would have been like a huge gap, you'd see brown here and here, but I painted it green so it matches the cape or the cloak, whatever. But overall, I just modified the arms and the shoulders. The rest is the same. And connecting the head back on. Now let's take a look at the arms, since that's also a modified part. So I'm going to show you a dissection of what I done. I used Nendoroid neck joints for the wrist and the elbows. And thinking back, when I tested the articulation in the elbows, articulation kind of stayed the same. So if you were to customize this figure and modify the arms, you don't have to give it Nendoroid neck joints for the elbows. You could just leave it just the way it is, because the articulation is about the same anyways. But just drill a hole for the hands and just give it like a wrist joint, because I feel like that using the wrist joint improves the articulation. It gives it more movement, and that's how you're able to do that bow and arrow look that the Decidueye usually does. And also, I had to shorten the arms too, because if I didn't, it would have extended the arms and it would have made it longer. So I had to like cut here, cut a little bit of chunk here, cut a little bit of chunk here, and stuff. Usually there'd be like a hinge connection, but I cut that off for this Nendoroid neck joint. You don't have to do that, but what I had to do is I had to like cut off some parts of the arm and glue it back on so it can like actually meet the length of the fabric. The fabric was a good thing for me because it helped me measure of how much to cut off for the arm, and it worked out pretty well. So yeah, I drilled holes here, 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 and when you put this back on, oh yeah, I forgot to mention the black paint I put on because it was a seam line and I wanted to keep track of the seam line. So I just add black paint so I can match it when I glue it back on. So that's it. It hides the black paint anyways with the wings or arms. I call them arms because they act like arms. So when you connect this, it should be fine. So now you can raise the arm up and use the wrist like this. Now this is how I can hold that bow and arrow. I don't have the other hand yet for this arm because I'm gonna use the default, but usually you'd put it in the hole of the fist or the holding hand, and that way it looks like this. So it gives the illusion that Decidueye is holding the strap or the buckle or whatever. And then he can use Spear Shackle. Like, I think I put pictures in. I'll upload them later. But you could make Decidueye like do this to his hand. You could do that if you want. Now let's talk about the accessories. Wait, before we go to accessories, I must address something. Articulation overall remains the same. The legs are the same, the head is the same. Shoulders and arms are just different. Or basically, wrist and shoulders are different if you were to modify this Decidueye figure. And the reason why there's like a line or a marking on this shoulder is because I tried to cut it off with an X-Acto knife and try to add another joint in here so it can move, because back then I wasn't really a fan of just this shoulder part moving while this, like the gap, gets exposed. So I tried to have this like sharp leaf part as another joint so it could make up for covering the body. But I scrapped that, so I had to glue it back on, and I changed my mind. So I used paint instead to hide the gaps. So accessories, it's more or less the same. You still get your arrow. Decidueye is able to hold the arrow on its right hand if you shove it in there. But by doing that, if you can see, the paint scratches off. The paint scrapes off and it's not good. But it's just a toy, just $10. It would be a $10 toy if this was a standalone figure, but it's $20 actually because it's a Toys R Us exclusive. And since Tomy lost the license to Pokemon and they've never made a standalone figure for Decidueye, Incineroar, and Primarina, that means the only way to get it is the exclusives. And Decidueye, as of right now, is the cheapest, and scalpers just gave them the price of maybe $30 to $50, which is not bad for what you're paying for. But Primarina and Incineroar, oh man, those are very rare because Primarina is from Barnes & Nobles and Incineroar is from GameStop. I never knew that those two were from different stores. I thought they'd all be from Toys R Us, like the Decidueye, but I guess I was wrong. I guess you could call me a Toys R Us kid back then. So, Toys R Us is out of business. GameStop and Barnes & Nobles, the bookstore, no longer have these exclusive Pokemon figures because Tomy lost the license and all. And also, those are like years ago. This is 2024. And this is basically an old figure at this point. But let's talk about the accessories now. So yes, he still comes with the arrow. It's well painted and all. But it does scratch off and come off when you stuff it into the hand. And two new accessories I've made out of epoxy clay are two fist hands. If I could do it right. Yep, two fist hands. So you could make the Decidueye hold the strap it has, and you can make him hold stuff and punch things. Decidueye can now use Sucker Punch as its move pool, or its move, with this fist. And it can properly hold the strap on its cloak to use Spirit Shackle with this hand. And I also drilled holes for the hands, the connections, so you can use this blade. I know this is the Greninja model kit blade, but it works so well for Decidueye's leaf blade. So all you gotta do is just shove it in the hole, and it now holds a blade. I know it's blue instead of green like leaf blade, but I could like sculpt another one of this, or use the silicone and resin trick and make a replica of this, but paint it green. But for now, I'll use this blade as his leaf blade. Now let's some comparisons. I've bought 3 of these figures. And as a result, I have 3 Tomy Decidueye figures. I still have the original, which is right here, which has the limited articulation and everything, where the arms can't move because of the shoulders. And I also have a custom Hisuian Decidueye. They're all Tomy Decidueye figures. That means I have like 3 of these box sets in total, while 2 are articulated better. But I still have the original right here. So we move these accessories out of the way. The Hisuian Decidueye figure has good movement as well because the shoulders are flared up instead of down like the Alolan counterpart. So its arms can have free movement. And you don't have to worry about it being articulated as well, so the shoulders just stay stagnant. So all you gotta worry about is the arms. I did not modify the elbows or arms, so it remains having a swivel, that's it. And it still has that hinge and stuff, and swivel, bicep swivel. But the one thing I did modify is just swapping the hands, because usually the hands would just, you know, go down like this, but I swapped the hands to each other so the hands can like go up like this. So that means that this Decidueye can hold the arrow with this hand instead of this hand. And I also used the hat. Like this, I could talk about this later. I don't want this to take over the spotlight because we're talking about this Decidueye figure. So yeah. And let's compare it to its baby counterparts or the pre-evolved counterparts. we got Rowlet and Dartrix. This belongs in the same set, which Decidueye is also in. I also have, well, these two belong to this Decidueye. The one that belongs to the custom Decidueye right here. I still have it in this box, as you can see, only at Toys R Us. Rowlet and Dartrix is still in the packaging because I'm not going to bother opening it as of now because I already have Rowlet and Dartrix out of a box. And I have another comparison of one of my custom action figures, or should I say homemade, because basically homemade at this point. We have another bird starter Pokemon, Quackable. He is so big. I know that Quackable is 5'11", while Decidueye is 5'3", so I guess this works out, but the thing is, this looks like Jazzware's Pokemon Select size, while Tomy is like smaller, matches like the 6-inch scale or 5-inch. And speaking of Selects figures, I have this Charizard right here. I used him in a display or a picture or a photo shoot. So it's in this pose where he gets shot by an arrow. Gotta go up. Yep, this Charizard. Like, this Charizard for a Selects figure from Jazzwares actually scales well with Decidueye. But for some reason, other figures are either oversized or they're just not right in scale, like the Legendary Beasts. Because I heard that the Legendary Beasts are small than they should be. But I don't really care because Legendary Pokemon, since they are already big, they might as well be downsized for action figure scale. And I think this wraps up my Decidueye action figure. My custom Decidueye action figure. It's just a quick mod, something I wanted to do for fun, and I'll send in pictures and stuff in the video so you guys can see how to make one yourself. These Decidueye figures are available like online, but they're like $10 more or $20 more. So Decidueye is the cheapest out of its Alolan starters counterparts, since Incineroar and Primarina are very expensive, so I don't recommend customizing Incineroar or Primarina unless you already have like a duplicate by the time those came out. But as of 2024, I don't recommend customizing the Fire Cat and the Sea Lion. But if you want to customize Decidueye, you can, as long as you have like a double, because I think these are valuable now. And hopefully in the future, Pokemon Selects or Jazzwares make a Decidueye figure, because they made Samurott and Typhlosion, but they still haven't made Decidueye for some reason. That would have been great for the Hisuian starters, even though it's not in their Hisuian forms. But enough chit-chatting. I am going to end this video, and thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Magical disappearance.